Hey everybody, you've got Jacob Lateris here with Danny Christner back for another edition of the JCT Podcast. I'm surprised we're not number one on iTunes yet, but I think we're getting there.
I think we're trending.
Yeah, we're trending, right? Well, yeah, it's been a little while since we've been back, and we were just kind of mentioning our last podcast was with Kyle Thomas, one of our drivers, and it was really interesting and awesome to have him in here and get his feedback. So if you haven't got a chance to listen to that, go and find that. It's on our YouTube page. You can find it on social media as well, but it's pretty easy to find on our YouTube page. So go and listen to our conversation with Kyle if you haven't heard that already. But yeah, it's been a little while since we've been back, and I think maybe 3 weeks or a month is a lifetime in this trucking cycle.
It feels like it. Yeah, and Kyle is great. I mean, the conversations and the insights he has. If you haven't listened to that, definitely do. And then also follow him on TikTok. What is he? The double T?
The _ double _ T or something like that. Well, we'll post it again on this video so you have it.
Yeah, he does great. In fact, he posted one recently explaining our pay structure and all the things that are included in our lease purchase program. And I'll be honest with you, he probably did a better job than we do about referencing all the different components. So appreciate his objectivity and the way he just gives things out at face value. He's a really good communicator, and as an objective standpoint, he's a driver. He's out there seeing and feeling what's happening.
He's done it for 8 years here, so he knows the ins and outs for sure.
Yeah, so he sees the hard and the easy, the good and the bad, and he just lays it out the way it falls. So really appreciate him.
Yeah, so I know I was just seeing today that obviously the market's kind of out of control, and the port of Los Angeles volumes were shooting back up just to add to the mess, and here we are just kind of slugging through it. So
yeah,
the market conditions have been pretty crazy. What have you been seeing lately that's caught your eye anyway?
Well, this time of year is we call it our Super Bowl season. From Memorial Day all the way through Labor Day is kind of the California produce season, and we haul a lot of produce, run a lot West Coast. So we always anticipate that it's going to be pretty crazy this time of year and pretty busy. This year has created some unusual circumstances because of the labor issues at shippers and receivers, and certainly at the port, as you just referenced. But one of the things we've been able to do because of this market is we've really been able to go in and improve our freight mix. I know Colton has had its challenges, and we've always viewed Colton as being a better option than going to the actual shed, the produce shed, because stuff has already been received into Colton. It's a lot of times it's preloaded on spot trailers, and the driver can get in and out of there really quicker than what they could at the traditional produce sheds. Unfortunately, they're having labor challenges out there as well, and so they've had some good weeks and some bad weeks. This last Sunday was a bad day where I'll be honest with our drivers out there. They just had over half of their staff called in, didn't come into work on Sunday, which is kind of hard to believe. But in today's world, that stuff happens. So it really put them behind on some loadouts and caused delays and load cancellations. And drivers, I promise, us and Walmart. Walmart's our customer. Walmart is Lineage's customer who runs the facility, and so everybody is frustrated. No one more than Walmart themselves, who's got this asset and this program, and then just by sheer lack of staffing, it creates all these delays. So we're working with them; they're working with us to try to minimize those delays as much as possible. So please be patient, communicate with us and your planners and driver managers. We're paying attention where applicable, even going above and beyond that. But we know that's not what makes you tick. It's going down the road with miles and onto your next destination and your next load. And I promise we're working really hard to try to keep that fluid.
Yeah, and it's supply chain and logistics that we're in. There's so many moving parts. You get everything lined up and you think everything's great, and then you get to a shipper and they don't have the staff didn't show up or whatever it is. It's just there's so many things that go on, and like Danny said, it's just a product of the market that we're in. And hopefully, there's 23 states that are kind of getting away from some of the federal unemployment benefits that were going out. So from a driver staffing side, that may help, but then also just the general public. Maybe some of that stuff will help get those states back in the right direction. And it may not be every state, but I think those are some steps that can maybe provide a shot in the arm sooner rather than later anyway.
Yeah, I sure hope so, because it's not just Colton and Walmart that's experiencing this. I saw a stat, where Amazon is, their fulfillment center employees are turning over at 150%. They're having a hard time staffing there. So, we're actually doing pretty well on the staffing side on the driver situation. We've staffed up added some new staff trucks. The logistics division is holding it its own, and so we're really, knock on wood, have held up pretty well. And back to what I was referencing on the mix of freight, we're picking up more beautiful loads. One pick, one drop. Some of it's non-produce, it's beverage and dairy and other prepared food products. Long miles. We've got a lot more freight going from California to Florida and back, which is helping support some of the dedicated runs that we've put together for drivers. So I really think, this market, a couple things. One, it allows us to push on pricing, which I'll get to more in a little bit, but it also allows us to improve our mix of freight and try to eliminate things like dwell time and multiple stops and delays at the receiving end and things like that. Now, being in the temp-controlled space, you're always going to have a little bit of that, maybe more so than dry van. It's a lot of drop and hook. But the shippers, believe me, and receivers understand that if they're going to get the capacity right now, they're going to have to find ways to drive out these delays and make it more driver-friendly, make it more carrier-friendly. And they're working to do that, and we're migrating towards freight that has those characteristics.
It's easier on everybody. Trust me, it's easier on us to have you guys picking up as soon as possible, delivering as soon as possible, and cutting out all the things in between. And we've taken steps to get there. I know in the Arizona market, we've done that quite a lot. So if you travel to Arizona, you might be picking up at some shippers that you haven't for us in the past, and that freight mix there has gotten really good. And just all over the place, this is the time for us, like you said, to go to the customers, get the rate increase that the market's demanding, and then in many ways passing that on to you. We're also wanted to bring to light, I know here over the last month and a half, 2 months, we've been talking a lot about early pre-planning and making sure that you guys have plans before you get delivered as much as possible so that you know where you're heading. And we've got a few numbers to run by on that where we've seen some progress, and we definitely wanted to share those with you so that you could see that, we said it's been getting better, but we actually have numbers to back it up. So
yeah, we looked out across, we divided up into west, central, and east zones, and across all three zones, to give you an example, from week 18 to week 24, we've moved from about 56% planned, and this is, I think, looking out 24 hours, I believe, and then up to 67% pre-planned within 24 hours. And by area, the West Coast zone has seen good improvement from 54 to 62. The Central zone actually jumped up the most from 52 to 68, and then the East zone from 63 to 74. So just to give you an idea, and I may have touched on this before, but as we're trying to use our fleet and logistics to balance and to cover all our freight, which it requires both to meet our customer commitments these days, that's one of the things sometimes that can cause a planner not to be able to plan as soon as drivers would like. And it's not so much that we're trying to find the right load to give to logistics or make the fleet wait to see what we can put on them. It's actually sometimes we're trying to source a logistics capacity and see what they can cover, and make sure that we still have the freight that our drivers need and want, whether it's fulfilling that dedicated obligation, getting a driver home, making sure the driver, we give them a load that has the right transit on it based on their hours and preferences. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but what's interesting about this movement is the things that were going into our process in week 18 are very similar in week 24, and here we are up over, what is that, almost 10,000 basis points, and we've gone up from 56.1 to 67.3. So big improvement there, and we're not done there. We're going to keep hitting it. To touch on a few days of the week, which end up being the highest, Friday is the highest pre-planned day, which probably makes sense as we go into the weekend, and the planners are trying to get everything planned up. It's over 82%. And then, one of the lower days is going to be a Monday at 55%. And a lot of that is honestly just trying to see what from the weekend, what got carried over. We're trying to get all the loads. Some of our shippers don't give us the actual, they'll know they're going to have a certain amount of loads for Monday, Tuesday, but we don't have the actual POs or tenders until that day. So that can cause a little bit of delays. And then just, so much of our equipment, because of the weekend, and the long transits, there's a lot of equipment that can, if receivers would take deliveries on Saturday and Sunday and shippers would ship on those days, I think you could see that it'd be a much more uniform walk. But because you have those 2 days of weekends, you stack up a bunch of deliveries and a bunch of inbound that lands on Monday. And so it's just hard to have every single truck planned at a high percentage. Hence the difference between Friday and Monday when you go from 82 down to 55. But I promise drivers, we hear what you're saying on that. We're working to get better, and we're going to continue to push this until we get to the optimum point that we think it's, and we're not there yet, but we have made improvement.
Yeah, and I think with all those variables and being able to jump up in a matter of 6 weeks, was it? Yeah, 6 weeks, 11% is really good on the planner's part. So I commend them for that. They're doing a great job there, and just managing all those different logistics trucks. You got the asset trucks, and Jim Jr. made a good point about if you've got trucks coming out of the shop here in town, having extra, a few extra loads here and there just in case somebody comes out, so they don't have to sit 24, 36 hours before they have a load. So there's those little things that go on everywhere that, we may not ever get to 100%, but we're going to keep pushing and do it as best we can. And I think we've already taken a big step in that direction.
Absolutely.
Really good.
Yeah.
So coming up later this week, we're actually going to be putting out a survey that's going to have some interesting questions for you guys. I think maybe questions that you might like to respond to. So I'll let Danny kind of take it from there. But yeah, there's going to be a survey coming out on Friday, and I'll tease you there, and then I'll let Danny take it over.
Yeah, you're right, Jake. No, this is, the weekly survey. First of all, thank you, drivers, for responding to that. We're hearing what you're saying, and we're making decisions based upon your comments and what you view as important. And now what we want to do is we want to take that a step further, and we're going to be asking you specific questions about pay. Not just the overall total pay, but the different components of pay that make up our program, and what are your preferences? What do you see as the most important, the most beneficial parts of our pay? Because as you know, we've got our base pay, we've got our fuel surcharge, we've got the market premium, we've got a retention bonus, we've got a safety bonus. So there's a lot of different components that make up our pay. And as of right now, with our fuel surcharge being at 28 cents a mile, our total pay per mile, and this is on loaded and empty, is about $1.43 as of this week. And I'll be honest, we've been able to make some moves on some rates and price increases with customers. So we're ready to pass some of that on to you, the driver. But we want to do it in a way that we feel like we get the input from you, and where is it most important? I mean, obviously the total amount of money passed over, that's one of the that matters. We get that. But we want to do it in a way that we can balance it out to make sure, one, that we hear what you say and what your preference is, and we meet that, and we can continue to move that up as the market advances. And look, we all know that someday this market is going to turn the other way and go down, and so we want to have some type of a variable component to that so that we can make adjustments the other way too. And while we don't see that happening probably maybe for the rest of this year, by sometime in 22 or later, you could see a pullback in things, and we've got to be able, what comes up has to have the ability to go back down, and that doesn't mean it's going to go down dramatically or make a huge move. But if freight rates and pressures in the market and the imbalances in the freight markets happen the other way, like they are now, the opposite of what they are now, then we've got to have the ability to adjust that. So my whole goal is I would love to get driver pay and incentives tied to some type of a metric here at the company. We're not a percentage-based model, and I hear from some drivers that they like percentage-based models because as freight rates go up, the driver automatically gets more money. Now when freight rates go down, also that adjusts downward, and I think most guys that work on percentage understand that. Ours is a fixed pay model, but we've added these other pay components which give it a variable aspect, and I'm in favor of that because the market has been so volatile over the last few years. I just want to make sure that we get it right, that we get it right for the driver, we get it right for the company, and we make it sustainable. So to Jake's point, there's a survey that you're going to be seeing later this week, and it's going to basically ask you to rate. Jake, why don't you go ahead and touch on the 5 topics that we're going to have in there?
Yeah, so So the survey will be, it's going to ask the question about really where do you feel a pay increase would benefit you the most, or where would you like to see it the most. So there's the fuel surcharge, there's the fuel discount, there's the base pay, where it could change the base pay, where we could change the market premium, a retention bonus.
And then that last one,
the big one, last one that we're kicking around would be changing from shortest to practical miles. So maybe not necessarily a change in pay or adjustment to a base rate, but changing from shortest line pay to practical pay, which I think
that's
maybe the big one.
Yeah, no, that's a huge step, because I'll be if drivers aren't aware, we get paid on short line miles from our customers. I bet we don't have. 98% of our customers pay on short line miles, and have forever.
Just industry standard.
It is an industry standard. That's right. It used to be the Household Movers Guide, then it's PC Miler short line version. Mm-hmm. Some people use Rand McNally. Everybody has different programs. And to be honest, the short line miles haven't changed that much over time. Sometimes what can change is the practical miles, because, cities build bypasses, interstates are advanced, and routes become different. And let's face it, as I drive a truck, you drivers are out there driving. It's virtually impossible and unsafe and not practical to drive the shortest route across country all the time. Because if you do that, it's going to take you through towns and cities, and just like I said, the safety aspect, the time, it's not feasible. So we understand you're driving. We're actually probably sending you a truck route sometimes, which is the practical route, the truck route, and you're driving that, and then you're getting your pay settlement, and you're looking and seeing that there's a discrepancy in the miles you drove and what you got paid for. And I can understand why that could be a source of frustration, not just some of the time, maybe all the time.
Yep.
And we recognize that. And believe me, I wish I could go to our customers and say, we need to be paid on practical route miles, because that's where our drivers are driving these loads. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the industry right now, it's kind of like unloading. We don't have enough leverage to overcome that yet. Maybe we do someday. Yeah. So what we're considering, and this is going to be in the survey that we send to you, we want your input. What is most important? Would it be to, let's say, for example, when Jake referenced the fuel rebate, right now the fuel rebate, if you fuel at the Pilot Flying J, is 15 cents a gallon. And that money goes onto a card in cash form that goes out to you every week. And we've heard really positive feedback in that program. Now, some of you recognize that even with your 15-cent discount, other stops can be cheaper for fuel. And some of you have the NATSCO card, where you've actually got set up credit with NATSCO and that organization, and you use their purchasing power to buy fuel on a basically like a wholesale plus a pumping fee, which is similar to what our program is with Pilot Flying J. So there's a lot of different angles to that. But what we want to do is ask you, what's your preference there? Then there's the base pay, which is in our contract, which I think is $1 a mile. Then there's additional money on shorter hauls. Mm-hmm. And then there's the team aspect, another 5 cents on that. And so the base pay, requires us to go back and change the contract, and that's something that we've been reluctant to do. We've been able to use market premiums and surcharges and retention bonuses and adjustments to fuel surcharge to flow pay back and forth, and without changing the contract. But that is one component. And then there is the market premium, which is at 8 cents a mile currently. And we added that on several months ago, mm-hmm. and it's been in place. Yeah. And now this quarter, some of you, this retention bonus,
coming up, yeah.
It's 5 cents a mile, and we're only a few weeks away from being paid that. So drivers that are listening to this podcast, if you don't know what you have in that retention bonus, please access your settlement, talk to your driver manager, call me if you have to. Let's figure out the kind of money, because it's anywhere from $1,500 to $1,700, $1,800, maybe significantly more than that for teams. And that money's going to be paid out, I think it's the second week after the end of the quarter, for drivers that are employed here. So you have to continue to be under contract and not necessarily under dispatch, but you have to be staffed on your truck to get that eligible for that bonus. And that's real money that's going to be paid out. So that's one aspect. And then, circling back on the practical versus short, I mean, that's a huge step for us to take, but we want to hear from you how important that is to you. And based on that feedback, we'll make the best decision we can to try to, if we do take that plunge, I'll be honest, I mean, we estimate sometimes that can be 6-7% variance, not in every lane, not in every route, but depending on where you're running, and what the mile variance is, that 6 or 7% is a lot of miles that you're not getting paid for. So if we do decide to go to practical, I mean, think about it like this: you could automatically be getting a 7% increase in your paid miles. So then you start thinking about, okay, what's my rate per pay? We just referenced it's $1.43 a mile. 7% of that is pretty easy to do the math. Is almost 10 cents a mile. So that's something we're actually giving strong consideration to. But we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you, the driver, about what's important, what matters to you, and then and we're going to be tallying that input and seeing what you say, and then factoring it in with what we know here internally, what we can do, and then probably follow up with another survey the following week to say to the driver, okay, here's the results, here's the components. Now let's vote on actually, how we're going to revise this. But there are changes coming for the third quarter, and the changes are going to be positive. In other words, you're going to be realizing either more money per mile, more miles paid based on your routes, a larger fuel discount or rebate, increased fuel surcharge. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. But the bottom line is this: well, it's going to improve your bottom line is what it's going to do. And so I'm really excited about this. I want to make sure that we do this like I said, it's got to be sustainable. It's got to be something that we can support and live with. And then the main thing is, what do you, the driver, what do you value? What's important to you? What matters to you? That's what we want to make sure we get right.
Well, and I hope this gives you guys an idea of how serious we are about listening to, reacting to those surveys and listening to what you have to say. That it's going to dictate likely what direction the company goes in as far as instituting a new pay increase or however that may be, a discount or whatever. Look for that survey. It should be out on Friday. So today is Wednesday the 16th. Look to have that survey out on Friday the 18th. And we'll take those responses. We'll start digging through that data and then either maybe record again and talk about some more of those details. If that's not necessary, then we'll just send out another survey and ask some more questions there. But your input's valued here, obviously, and I hope you feel that. Us reaching out and asking you, where would you like to see this is a step that maybe not many companies would take. So, please take the time to give us that feedback and help us decide which direction to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm excited about that. I mean, because the drivers, if we can connect more with you and be your rep, I want to feel like we're representing you just like you represent us. We're going to the customers and we're asking for improved terms and improved routes and things like that, more money at times. And then therefore we want to make sure we're synced up with you, the driver, that we can pass that back to you so you can benefit from that. It doesn't do us any good for ownership or a small group of people here to benefit and the drivers not benefit. So my goal is to sync up with you, the driver, to hear what you have to say, to hear what's important to you, and then to respond and to deliver on that. And I think we've definitely taken steps towards that. We're going to continue. That's going to be our charge. That's going to be our march to find ways to sync up more with the driver and continue to push it forward to make JCT the best company and program out there in the industry. And I know I look at our freight routes and our miles and what we run, and I know they're superior to a lot of the competition. And now what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that our package keeps up with the market too, and that we're giving guys reason. We're giving them reason to come here, and we're giving them reason to stay, and we're making them successful. And they enjoy what they're doing and they're treated well. That's all the different things that I want to see happen. So yeah, definitely. This podcast will be hitting the streets tomorrow on Thursday the 17th. The survey coming out Friday the 18th. Please respond to that as soon as possible. It'll give us the information we need to make these decisions because we want to roll this stuff out for the third quarter and beyond. And that's only, what is it, a couple weeks away? Yeah, so it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I think that about wraps it up for this episode of the podcast. Since the last one, do you have a TikTok handle and You got a bunch of followers that want me to plug your TikTok or anything?
I don't. I'm gonna defer to our man Kyle Thomas on that. Just like he said he wouldn't compete with us in some areas of that we reside in. I'll do the same with him. Not to mention, I think that guy's got a big head start on both of us. So
take a while for us to catch
he's got a lot of followers. Yeah, the last thing I just want to touch on is we're in summer months. Summer temps are high. That leads to more unit failures, tire failures. I mean, speaking of you referenced Phoenix a while ago. I saw it was 118 degrees out in the desert right now. There's wildfire seasons. It's definitely an area of the country that we have a concentration of traffic in. Extreme temps across 40 and 10 and out in the desert and even any parts of the country right now can cause they stress our equipment. The road hazards, the stuff that can happen out on the road increases. And we're constantly trying to make sure, let's be proactive about unit conditions and temp checks and making sure that we're in communication with breakdown if we do sense that there's a problem on a unit. Our trailer pool and trailer condition is another thing we heard you drivers on. We're aggressively pursuing that with additional maintenance contracts with third-party providers to check trailer pools and to do maintenance on them. We're also having drivers give us more information on a trailer that they discover that's been dropped that maybe wasn't in the best condition or had a repair item that need to be addressed. So that's something we heard from you drivers, and we need to stay on top of that. So help us if you'll report that, and we can track it and we can and get on top of it. Then we can get that fixed. We can circle back with and discover, the source and talk to not only to the driver, but find out, hey, there's times where just time constraints and things like that don't allow the driver to get something addressed, and we understand that. But if we can be more proactive and more aggressive on that, then we can make sure that when you're dropping and picking up another trailer, that you're not picking up a problem.
Yeah, for sure. We're certainly feeling the heat here, too, as we were getting a nice rainy season there for a while. Now it's up in the 95, 99 degrees here in Oklahoma. So
yeah, it seemed like summer would never get here, and now it's here, believe me. It's not only here in Oklahoma, it's all over the country.
It's here, yeah. Here, and so are some awesome changes coming your way soon. So help us with that survey that'll come out on Friday. We'll get this out on Thursday the 17th, so make sure and listen and then get on the survey so we can take that data and act on it quickly. And we may be back next week or the next couple weeks with another recording. So we appreciate everybody listening in.
Yeah, thank you, drivers. Be safe out there. Appreciate what you do.
Yeah, thank you.